It is time for the OffshoreInsiders.com sports betting podcast for Monday, February the 9th. Yes, yesterday was a 3-0 sweep for Joe Duffy's picks, led by Wise Guy plays on the Clippers over, Oakland in college basketball, and then a major play on the Cavs. Yeah, I know we got down on that a little bit early. A three-pointer at the end, tried to make it look interesting, but everybody covered by at least a half. We're at 57.856% winners, 103-75 in basketball. We've got 4 NBA winners at Joe Duffy's picks. Those of you who access overnight, 2 steams were at it. To the 2 overnight winners, winning is everything. We've done it since 1988. We've got a Wise Guy play among them, and there is zero debate that being able to exploit counterintuitive reasoning is a goldmine for bettors. See a perfect example of what we're talking about tonight. It gets revealed at OffshoreInsiders.com. Most importantly, 4-0, including a Wise Guy play. Now your news and notes. Orlando and Washington. Washington guard Bradley Beal is questionable. He averages 15 points per game. He is the 28th most effective shooting guard according to the Hollinger ratings. The Magic are 6-28 against the spread since December 14th of 2009, off of a loss of 4 points or fewer, in which they trailed by double digits. However, the Wizards are 2-17 to the number since April 18th of 1999 at home, with at least one day of rest when they held their opponent to fewer than 80 points in their last game. Now, a league-wide system, teams are 40-14 since January 20th of 2014 as a home favorite off of a win in which they never trailed as a favorite. That angle says to go with Washington. Now, Orlando is playing back-to-back in 3 games in 4 days versus a fully rested Washington team. San Antonio and Indiana, home dogs since January 22nd after that shocking 82-119-2 start are now 32-13, so the regression to the mean continues. The Spurs are one of the strongest consensus plays of the day. 82% of the betting public is betting on them at the time that we record this report. Golden State and Philadelphia, again, that same angle that applies where home dogs are regressing to the mean, finally covering 32-13. Philadelphia is actually 13-6-1 of the number since losing Tony Roten. They've gone under 13-7 with him, including 10-4 since he was lost for the season. Now, their point guard, Michael Carter-Williams, is questionable. He averages 15 points per game, 6.2 boards, 7.4 assists. However, Hollinger has him only as the 41st most effective point guard, so his absence, at least according to Hollinger, could be overvalued, though the Sixers are actually 0-2 against the spread when he does not play. Now, the Warriors are 3-21 against the spread as a favorite with at most 1 day rest after a win in which they're off of a game in which they scored at least 10 points more in the first quarter than they did in the fourth quarter. However, the Sixers are 2-17 as an underdog when their opponent is playing at least their 3rd straight road game. However, that's starting to change. They're actually 2-0 under those circumstances after a 17-game losing streak. However, Philadelphia remains 0-11 at home and after a game in which they had 5 or fewer offensive rebounds. Now listen to this. This is interesting. Home underdogs of 12 or more are 66-40-2 for 62%. In fact, with a large point spread, home teams generally do well. In fact, we're going to have an even better system coming up in a moment. Philadelphia is kind of developing into a dichotomous spread and straight-up team. Remember, this means if a team is consistently winning outright, but failing to cover or losing outright and covering, we ride the spread streak. This has been proven to be a way to isolate over and undervalued teams. Well, Philadelphia is 6-1 their last 7 against the spread, despite a 12-40 straight-up mark. Golden State, maybe the opposite, 3-5 their last 8, despite a 40-9 straight-up mark. But now, here's a very impressive one. Home underdogs of 10.5 or more with a winning percentage that is 55 points or more less than their opponent are 57-29. Or another way to phrase it, there's at least a 55-point winning percentage difference, and that's actually should be .550. as far as winning percentage is concerned. If there's at least that big of a difference and you got a home underdog of 10.5, go with that home underdog. So we are going to ride that, and that says to go with Philadelphia. Once again, the Philadelphia 76ers are a free pick. The Knicks and the Heat. Knicks Milo Anthony is probable. Dwayne Wade is out for the Heat, going under 9-6 minus him. You know, again, if you can just help us out, any way you can help us get exposure, most notably, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, the experts tell us if you give us a 5-star review, that will really help us show up in the searches, get us more exposure. Please do that. If you're seeing this on Facebook or the YouTube simulcast, please give us a like. All that will help us. The more exposure we get, the more free information we will be happy to give you. Thank you. And thank you to those who have already done that, especially the reviews on iTunes or Stitcher, which is what we could really use. Now, Utah and New Orleans. New Orleans, Anthony Davis is questionable. Pelicans have gone under 3-1 minus him. Hollinger has him as the best player in the NBA. Pelicans are 9-5 since losing Drew Holiday. That is against the spread, going under 9-5. Now, teams are 19-56 since January 25th of 2014 as a home dog off of a double-digit loss, in which they allowed at least 50% from the field, so that angle would say to fade New Orleans. Brooklyn and Milwaukee, the Nets are 0-11 as an underdog with at most 1 day's rest off of a loss that broke at least a 3-game winning streak. However, the Bucks are 18-3 against the spread as a favorite off of a game in which they were tied 5 or more times at home, but off of a win at home, that is, off a win at home, but they're only 2-15 with at least 1 day's rest after a win in which they scored less than 15% of their points from the free throw line. Now, remember, all records we give you are ATS, unless we otherwise note. Sometimes we'll give you over-under trends, but they're not straight up. If we're giving you a straight-up trend, we will be very specific. They're all ATS. Atlanta and Minnesota. Again, this the old home dog with regression to the mean would favor Minnesota. Hawks point guard Jeff Teague is questionable. A lot of people think he is a contender for MVP, although the Hawks are a surprising 3-0 against the spread when he does not play this year. He's the 4th most effective point guard according to Hollinger. Both teams are playing back-to-back and 3 games in 4 days. Atlanta is a big public bet. 82% of those people who bet on this game spread-wise are betting on Atlanta. Clippers in Dallas. Clippers without Blake Griffin. He is rated the 10th best player and 2nd best power forward. They lost against the spread and went over the total in the first game without him. The theory being that sometimes teams will rally around adversity in the first game without a star player, but usually second, especially the third game, that starts to wear off. Dallas, though, is still minus Rajon Rondo, the 35th most effective point guard, according to Hollinger. Clippers are playing back-to-back and 3 games in 4 days. Oklahoma City and Denver, home dogs again. That would favor Denver. That stat we keep giving you, 32-13 regression to the mean. OKC back-to-back in 3 games in 4 days. OKC is the top public play. We gave you a total of 3 strong public plays. Now, the sharp money says, as a general rule of thumb, it's good to fade it as a contrarian, but no sharp in the world that I know of would bet that loyally. But again, the top public play at the time we file this podcast is Oklahoma City. 83% of people betting on that game spread-wise are betting on OKC. You know, late info, which is an exclusive to offshoreinsiders.com. Remember, back in the 1990s, it was called the 2-minute warning on the score phones. Yesterday, you were given a very strong hint when they told you the biggest play, one of the biggest plays of the season was going in college basketball. Why? Because it was a rare money line pick. Illinois-Chicago plus 444 on the money line was the 3rd money line bet all season in basketball. All 3 were plus 283 or more. Plus 280 or more. All 3 won. Now, 160-72 since 2012, with many of the winners and some losers being moneyline underdogs. Keep in mind, the late info is only updated as situations warrant, but in college basketball, it's having one of the great years ever. Just visit offshoreinsiders.com. Generally, the plays are released maybe about 2 hours before game time, and it's truly late info that does come in from a number of different sources. But late info, 100% exclusive to offshoreinsiders.com. 160-72 since 2012. A ton of moneyline underdog winners, including Illinois-Chicago, plus 444 on the money line yesterday. Late info, exclusively on offshoreinsiders.com.